Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchins.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter in the western states of the United States, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. All in all, if you're hunting out west in 2018, GoHunt.com Insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. We're heading actually down to Georgia and with Lyle, Avis, and we're going to be talking about dog tracking tonight. And he's quasi famous. He's real famous in Georgia. He's getting famous throughout the social media world with just his stories and his handheld videos. And pronounce the name of your company, your dog company.
Right, so it's Schmavis Outdoors.
Schmavis Outdoors. So remember that. And you can look him up on social media. But Lyle kind of got reverse engineered. He fell in love, and then his wife got him into hunting. How'd that happen?
My dad hunted a little bit when I remember a hand here, but I just wasn't that. I was never interested. And then I ended up getting married. We moved to Iowa. I get married and join the Army, move away. Years go by, and we come back, and my father-in-law, my wife, they're like, hey, you want to go hunt today? And I was like, man, I've never hunted anything in my life. And on top of that, he wants to go bow hunting. Like, well, I've never even shot a bow outside of, like, Boy Scout camp when I'm, like, 5, So he comes home at lunch, hands me this bow from my little brother-in-law that's, about 3 inches draw length, too short for me. And he's like, here, I'll show you how to shoot this. So about 30 minutes of instruction at lunch. He comes back after work at about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And he's like, you ready to go? I'm like, I shot for a half hour. Sure, I'm ready to go hunt. They take me out there on that first hunt. I think I shot every arrow in that quiver and didn't come within 10 feet of the deer I was shooting at. But after that, I was hooked. Went the next day, bought my own bow. You'd be surprised how good you can shoot when you're shooting a bow that actually fits you compared to shooting one 3 inches too short. But that's what really sucked me in from there was the in-laws and them wanting to go hunt and go out all the time. Right now they're probably the biggest pheasant hunting family that I know, and a whole house full of pheasant deer heads on the wall. And, they have the land that we hunt whenever I go back home to Iowa. So
now, what part of Iowa is it? What part of Iowa is it?
Northeastern Iowa, so it's Dubuque, Iowa. They actually live in Epworth, Iowa right now. Tiny little speck on the map outside of Dubuque, right on the Mississippi River, kind of where Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa all touch. That little corner right there, that is my hometown of Dubuque, Iowa.
Is that near McGregor at all?
Oof, it doesn't sound familiar, but
okay, McGregor's a little bit north of that. Like you said, you know where I went to college at the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, and so I wasn't that far from it. I never hunted Iowa. I've only hunted Iowa for whitetails once. Pheasant hunted a little bit, but I'd like to get back there. But it's a 4-year wait. It's just a 4-year wait.
Yeah,
it's just kind of how it is.
It's rough, and like I was telling you before, Iowa's where I've hunted probably the most, but all my good bucks have come out of Kentucky or here in Georgia. I'm like the guy, everybody's dream. They're like, man, I wish I could hunt in Iowa. I'm like, but I can't get on them big boys like some people do.
Yeah. Let's talk about, you were 20 something when you started hunting?
Yeah. I would say it was probably 2007. if I was making a rough guess, I'm going to say 2007.
Uh-huh.
That whole story that I was talking about coming back and going with my family. I mean, I was on leave because we just came back from a deployment to Iraq, so I was on leave for 30 days. That's what really kicked it off. Was your in-laws don't want you sitting around the house for 30 days while you're visiting, so we got out and went hunting. But 2007, so I was 20. Oh, my math's not good. 24,
Okay.
25 probably then. Yeah, so I mean,
And so for the reason I wanted to bring that up, guys, if you haven't started hunting, and find a gal that you really love and get introduced to her family who's got land, someplace they get some whitetails or elk or deer or something, so you can get out hunting and start enjoying it, because it's a great sport. I guess that's all I can.
Marry a woman whose dad has land in Iowa.
There's a lot of jokes of that going around. There's posts on that on Instagram all the time. Your family has how many acres? And
yeah, right. It's not about how many they have, how much they have access.
Yeah, I'm in instant love. But we wanted to switch it up to the dogs and tell the story about how we did it on Facebook Live. We're going to redo it here, and why you got into the dog tracking. What happened?
Yeah, so I was hunting Fort Knox, Kentucky. Same kind of setup. It's semi-public land. Depends on how you want to define public land. But hunting in Kentucky, and I shot probably a 160, 170 12-pointer out. And just by the way the arrow came in, high angle, didn't exit the other side, I had almost no blood trail. I had one little tiny drop of blood, probably about 50 yards out. I watched the deer stagger through the woods and kind of bounce off trees, so I knew where he went. Even now, after all this tracking, I would say that deer probably died somewhere. Just I could not find it. Looked for days. I probably went back 3-4 days in a row. Looked for buzzards like 3-4 days after that, and I was just like, this is never happening to me again. And I briefly heard a little bit that people were using dogs. I'd seen it on some shows before, like you were talking about how I've seen some guy drop his little Jack Russell on it and go find the deer, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna figure out how to do this myself and track these deer. And I moved to Georgia right after that season, actually mid-season. I moved in December. Moved down here, got settled in, bought a dog, and just started Googling and YouTubing, Facebooking, everything I could get my hands on to start.
So that was the beginning.
Yeah, that's how it all started right there. I got a little Catahoula from a guy down here in Georgia, who had all the bloodlines in that dog were all set up for bay competitions and hog hunting. So she's got all sorts of lineage about bay championships and hog hunting. And I was like, I could take this Catahoula and teach it to track a deer instead of a pig. I was like, it shouldn't be a problem. I got on there, United Blood Trackers website, started asking questions on there, asking Facebook. I watched some videos that Jeremy Moore does from the Dog Bone Hunter, and really just followed along and set it up. And it started that, everybody always asking, okay, well, is my dog too old to start, or when did you start training your dog? Everybody says that your dog is never too old, right? You can teach him to do whatever never too old to teach or whatever it is to teach an old dog new tricks, right? Like that's not really a thing. But I brought my dog home at like 8 weeks old, and the day I brought her home, we started training. Step one, I was feeding her in the backyard. I was feeding her 3 times a day, so she was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And for lunch, I would take that scoop, that little like half a cup or whatever it was in my little scooper, and I would mark out a spot in the backyard in the grass. And I didn't mow it, so I made sure it was at least ankle high, mid shin high, and I would sprinkle that food around in the square that I had marked out in the grass. So she had to use her nose to find her food, really just to get her using her nose more than just wander around. She'll eat whenever I put the food in the bowl. I made her work for it a little bit. And if she left that little square and didn't immediately come back, no, she was done. She was done eating. She had her chance. She quit working. She quit getting food for that. And then, she wouldn't eat again until supper. So like those were the very beginning of the days. And then, of course, I didn't do enough pre-planning, right? So I didn't have any blood saved up from the last season. I didn't have a whole lot set up to really start the training, so I had to kind of improvise a little bit. I got a plastic baggie, just a normal plastic baggie, and I cut off a little chunk of the precious backstrap that I had in my freezer and put it in that water. So then, the blood kind of got sloshed around. So you had some watery water in there with that little chunk of meat. And I poked a little hole in it, a couple little holes. The water would leak out. I would just drag it, and every couple of feet I would just drop one little piece of hot dog. And then I would go another couple feet, a little piece of hot dog. The whole time I'm dragging that bag, and just letting that bloody water and the smell of that meat come out. And a little hot dog. And I would probably say my first ones were like 10, 15 yards. You'd have to do it different if you were doing a bigger dog. But, when your dog's 8 weeks old, it's like this big. 10, 15 yards. And then at the end, I'd give that little piece of meat and the rest of the hot dog. Go back to the beginning, and I'd put her on it. I'd get her excited about it and tell her to track. Use my same command word over and over again. I'd be like, let's track it, Zada. She'd go nose down. Her little curl tail would come up. She'd be walking along. She'd be like, oh, hot dog. Start eating this hot dog. And then she'd sniff. And I'd say probably only took a couple of those till she figured out that trail was going to lead to that piece of meat that she could smell. And, from there, you just, like anything else, you just build on it more and more. So then now I'm at 20 yards. Then I'm at 50 yards. And now I'm doing some slow S curves in the track at 50 yards. Then I'm doing some 90-degree turns. Then the hot dogs come away. Then it gets longer and longer. Eventually I'm at 100, 150. And like I said before, the dog bone has this kit because I didn't have anything pre-planned, right? I should have saved up for it from last season and put blood on it or whatever. They have a kit with a chunk of deer skin in it. And I would take that chunk of deer skin, I put a little blood on it, and then I would drag that once I stopped using the hot dog. Just the dander from that deer skin, excuse me, the dander from that deer skin would just come off in the grass, and that's how they're tracking it. So I'm going a couple 100 yards, 300 yards, and then once I got to by the time I got to about 400 or 500 yards, that's when I really started aging it and dialing back. So I would go from running it within 30 minutes to like now I'm going back to a 100-yard track, but I'm letting it set for 4 or 5 hours. Then it's 12 hours, and then I'm running 500-600-yard tracks with 90-degree turns and those S curves that I'm laying out the night before, and then not running them until the next morning. Basically like how you would if you shot that deer that evening and didn't want to go track it. And then it just keeps progressing along that trail. Really now we're to the point where I have like a deer hoof on the end of a stick. I'll put a little bit of blood on it, and I'll just go for a walk, like a walking stick. And that little bit of that interdigital gland as it hits the ground is what the dog is tracking the whole time. So I'll go for a mile, walk through the woods, zigzag, cross creeks, and then take the next day, 12, 24, or 36 hours later, put it on that. I always leave, go back and put the leg at the end so she has that real good treat that really kind of keeps them fired up. You always gotta have something. You gotta keep them excited, or they're not gonna want to do it anymore. But training wise, that was the progression of the whole scenario.
How long did that take? I'm from puppy to adult.
I think I got her. She was 4 months old when we did her first aptitude assessment with the United Blood Trackers, where she went out and got tested, and they said, "Yep, this dog has what it takes to be trained as a blood tracker." And she was 4 months old then, and at 6 months old, we found that pig that I was talking about. That was like the first pig that a guy called me on. She's 6 months old. She was only 8 months old by the time of her first deer season. So all that time, probably 6 months of hot and heavy work, and then after that, it was only once every other week we ran a track. But it was a good 12, 20 hours old by the time we were running it.
Now, what happens if it rains? You don't have snow in Georgia, but what happens? What happens if it rains?
The rain. So rain is bad for people tracking, but real good for the dogs, especially down here when it's really hot, because the water will hit it, or the rain, condensation. Same thing in the morning, and the ground is wet from the dew. It kind of almost revitalizes that scent and brings it back up. Whereas if it's real hot and sunny out or real dry, not only does it affect their nose, the dog's got to have a wet nose to be able to be effective. So not only that, but it also brings that scent back, brings the blood back, doesn't let everything dry up, fights the ants back. You'll have a lot of problem down here with ants too. The ants will get on it, and they'll just destroy your blood trail too sometimes down here.
Interesting. Things I hadn't thought of. Yeah, I get the moisture, because hunting pheasants out here, eastern Colorado, it's drier and everything, and the dogs are dying. I mean, the pheasants are there, but there's nowhere they can find them because it's way too dry.
Yeah, and for the rain to really have a negative effect, it's got to be pouring. Like, it's got to be washing the blood away, like a stream. But if it's just a general rain and everything is wet, and you're getting wet, it's much better to have that than that hot, dry day.
Huh. That's interesting. So now, how old is Zada now?
She's 2. So she's turned 2 in December. So I guess you'd say she's 2.5 now.
And what kind of qualifications, what kind of credentials does she have?
So we went through the United Blood Trackers. I'm gonna hit them up a lot because those guys really took care of me. And I mean, by far the best setup for everything. They have the best websites, and you can find a tracker, and they just generally take care of everyone. But they have 4 levels if you count the aptitude, right? So you have the aptitude assessment, the AA, and then you have the UBT level 1, 2, and 3. And then they just get progressively harder, the 1, 2, and 3, based off of age and everything. But we've done the UBT 1. Now I'm trying to remember if it was a 12 or 24. I want to say it was just a 12-hour age track. They used just 3 ounces. And when I'm talking about putting blood out, I'm talking 3 ounces of blood when we go out and put a track out. But that track was 3 ounces of blood, 12 hours old. The judge goes out and he puts the track out. So it's like pretty much a blind scenario where I don't know where the track is, unlike our normal training tracks, where I know where it is and I can correct her if she gets off the track in the beginning. But that was completely blind. You go up and it's almost like a normal scenario where you come up and the judge pretends like, he's the hunter. I shot a deer and I think it went this way. And you go out and just put the dog on it. She executes, and you kind of just, like any test, you hope for the best. But, it gets progressively harder. UBT 3s are really hard. They're 24 hours old. There are multiple turns and fake wound beds, and they might be crossing a creek or several creeks, and they can get pretty serious with some of the UBT 3s. We were hoping to knock out a UBT 2 this last year, but we didn't get a chance to go to the annual Track Fest. I think this last one was in Oklahoma. Oklahoma just legalized using tracking dogs this last year. I think was their first one, so pretty big deal. I still can't understand how not everyone legalized tracking deer with the dog. People are still scared of it, but
why?
Making progress.
Why?
I really don't know. I think people are so afraid, in my mind, of that people are going to use those dogs to run the deer or to dog hunt or to deer hunt with the dogs. Kind of, how that some of these southern states will do that.
They still do, right? Louisiana still runs dogs.
Which one?
Louisiana, I think, still runs dogs.
Yeah, I know some people do, but I couldn't tell you which ones. But yeah, I think people are just scared of that, which it really doesn't make any sense to me, just based on how could you not make every effort to recover.
Here's a hot special for all Whitetail Rendezvous listeners. The Hunting Buddy app is giving away an all-expenses paid free-range whitetail hunt at ABC New York Ranch this fall. You'll be hunting with NASCAR driver Spencer Boyd and the Hunting Buddy team, all the while being filmed by a professional film crew from Schmavis Outdoors, as seen on the Pursuit channel. To enter the contest for free, go to huntingbuddyApp.com. Click the Huge Hunt Giveaway section tab and download the app. When you upgrade to the Outfitter plan, you get 30 additional giveaway entries. Hunting Buddy app is your best choice for staying safe in the woods with their patent-pending safety notification system. So lunar information including peak game, activity times, current and future weather forecasts, land ownership, hunting waypoints, group hunting, and so much more, all for free from Hunting Buddy app. That's HUNT apostrophe N BUDDY app.
Deer that you wounded,
Yeah, I agree.
But I want to say I was looking at my maps on here on the UBT thing, but I want to say there's still 7 or 8 states that don't allow it, if I remember right. Mainly, it's mainly north and western states that are kind of fighting it a little bit. I know Washington doesn't. I want to say Oregon's on that list. A couple of the northeastern states. It just seems it's always been weird to me that wouldn't be a higher priority. Yeah, here's Washington, Oregon, Nevada, Arizona, Wyoming, North Dakota, Minnesota, West Virginia, like Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. No dog tracking.
So, folks, if you live in those areas, get a hold of your rep, get a hold of somebody, your DNR, and say, why not? I mean,
Right.
One, we don't want to lose game. Bad shots happen, and so why not do everything we can to recover that game and use the meat?
Yeah, and most of the trackers that I know, I'd say I've actually probably split 50-50, right? So I run my dog probably 50% of the time on a 30-foot lead. Probably for me, it's more than that. Probably 75% of the time I'm running her on a 30-foot lead, right? So she's not running wild. She's not out chasing every deer in the woods, ruining people's hunts like I think people are afraid of. Like, she is on a 30-foot, she's on a leash essentially. It's just a really long leash. I know a lot of other states have kind of put that requirement on their tracking. Like, hey, you can track here, but you have to be on a leash. Or some states will have it if you're on public land, you have to be on a leash. And most people I know don't really mind that too much. I mean, it's easier on the tracker if I can just drop the dog and meet her at the end. But I've been drugged through my fair share of briar bushes by a 30-foot leash. But when you heal up, you find the deer and you move on.
Oh yeah. Well, that's so interesting. So what's the cost of getting a good tracking dog? What do you think? What do you think the cost is?
It's really all over the map. I know people who were at some of the conventions and stuff that I've gone to that picked up their dog from the shelter. And then on the other end of that, I know some people who are importing, their Bavarian mountain hounds, for $3,000-$4,000 from Germany, Poland, places in Europe. Same thing for wire-haired dachshund. You're bringing them in from Germany, whatever. It just really kind of depends on what you're looking for. My dog was middle range. She ran me when I went and picked her up. She was about 700. So it's not gonna people spend that money on just junk on a regular basis anyways. But she's paid for herself 10 times over probably in the last 2 years. But it's really all over the map. I know a lot of guys. That shelter dog is just how much work you want to put into it. You're looking at that original initial instinct that might be coming from generations and generations of bred for this specific work, or you might have to put a little more work into it and really get them fired up about it.
So, folks, check it out. I think if you live in a state, you really need to, take a hard look at this. There's a lot of reasons. One, dogs are fun to have around, and if you can, come back to camp and the next morning put them out and have your deer recovered by noontime or earlier, what's wrong with that?
Yeah, on top of that, if you're going to be the one who wants to get a tracking dog and really wants to get going, man, it can be some pretty exciting times. There's times where I'm in the tree and I'm not seeing anything, and somebody will call me, and I'll just look around and be like, tracking would be more fun than sitting in this tree right now. I'll just climb down and go track with people.
Now, what's the cost? What does a tracker cost?
Yeah, again, you're all over the map. A lot of people, I would say a fair average price is you're going to spend anywhere between $100 and $150 to have somebody. Now, in your case, like if you're in Colorado Springs and you got to have that guy come from 115 miles away, you're probably going to have to offer him a little bit more than. Most people are going to come out and they're going to tell you they take a donation to cover, gas and time spent looking and, future training supplies. That's usually what I tell people, which then on the flips over and I usually get about between $100, $150. And then if I have to drive somewhere outside of my little 45-minute hour radius on the map, we'll just make sure we discuss prices a little earlier and it might go up. You might go out and find that guy's 170-inch buck. He's willing to pay you $300, $400. You know what I mean?
$100 bills are flying.
They're flying everywhere. And then, I've tracked some deer where guys have thrown me a pretty good donation. just because we had a good time out there tracking that deer. Because I'm telling you, nothing will get your blood flowing like when that deer jumps out of that bed a couple feet from you. You gotta let the dog go. Deer's running, dog's running, I'm running behind it. I looking over my shoulder. The hunter's back there trying to keep up with us. I usually can watch on my GPS and see how far the dog's getting away from me. I almost have it down to a science. If she starts baying that deer and it's about 300 yards in front of me, like something magical happens in that range. And she'll almost always get about 300 yards and she'll get that deer stopped. And then I'm looking back like, where's the hunter? Where's the hunter? It was 17 years being in the Army has, put me a little ahead of most of the people running through the woods, so I'm looking back and I get him to catch up. We get another shot on the deer when it's legal. Some states don't like that either, but you get another shot of the deer and they're looking at you, sweating and breathing hard and shooting deer on the freaking run, and it gets crazy. People get excited about it. That's when it might cost you a little bit more. But you're usually, I've never had somebody pay me and then like walk away and look like they wish they didn't pay me.
Yeah.
And it gets exciting. You're holding leashes and dogs are running and deer are running at you. Got charged a couple times last year. They can get.
They didn't like it. Tell me about that. The deer spun back and came at you.
Yeah. So I had probably three times this last season that were just over the top exciting. Right. So we had one nighttime. We're on the track. I can't remember. I want to say the guy said that he hit it a little bit low, right? So we're talking bottom of the rib cage all the way across. Maybe nicked the lungs, but definitely has caused damage because of the opened up the chest cavity. So the lungs are kind of collapsing, but that thing is still going. And we're out there and we're finding little bits of blood every now and then. I'm running Zada on the leash on this one. So I would say 99% of the time, if she thinks that deer is still alive or picks it up and it runs and she sees it, she instantly flips to bay mode and just starts barking. She's wide open barking, trying to drag me to the woods. And that's part of the little brief that I give my hunters when I get there. It's like, hey, we're going to be tracking. She's going to be silent on the track until she thinks the deer is alive or we're close to it alive. And then she's just going to go crazy. I'm like, that's how we'll know. So we're going there and it's dark and we're on our hands and knees crawling under these real low hanging branches on some pines. And the leash goes slack, right? I'm like, I don't know, maybe she's going to the bathroom, whatever, whatever she's doing, whatever dogs do, right? And the leash goes slack. I didn't even think about it because, like I said, she goes crazy if she sees the deer. And I'm like, what are you doing under there, Zada? I'm talking to her. And I was like, let's find it. Let's find that buck. And I get on my hands and knees and I crawl under this branch. And I got my headlamp on, so I can't see anything. And then I lift my head up and look. That buck is about 3 feet away from me, standing there, antlers right at my face. And I'm like, oh, man, all sorts of explicit language was coming out at that point. And I'm trying to hand the leash off to the hunter so he could hold the dog because I had the 357 on my hip. So I'm trying to pass this off, grab the 357. At the same time, I started to pull it out of my holster. That buck charged me and flung Zada up in the air through the trees, back over, probably 4 or 5 feet back towards the guy holding the leash. So I'm like yelling at him. I'm like, hold the dog. Because, I'm not going to start shooting in thing when the dog's right there. So I'm like, hold the dog. So he's like, I got her. Boom, I start shooting this, trying to put the deer down, finishing this job. And then he takes off and runs at me again. But then the guy let go of Zada. Boom, she's on that dog, on that deer, drags it to the ground, and we're all standing there again. And it's like perfectly silent except for the dog. We're all just looking around like, wow, did that just happen? It gets crazy. That's the only time they've ever ran at me.
Now, why didn't she bay? Because the deer was right there alive.
I don't know. That's the only time last year that she didn't. And it was. I don't know if maybe there was some blood there and she stopped and was like sniffing the blood and the scent had really pooled, and she just didn't see it. I don't know. I got no explanation on that one.
Yeah,
but it was low.
That's pretty interesting.
Chest cavity.
Yeah, deer are powerful. they're all shoulders.
They're so strong. I had, I know a lot of guys from my Facebook groups and stuff that have, they've had their dogs. Same thing happened to their dog. That antler will catch inside a rib or catch in an armpit. And they can tear them up pretty good.
Oh yeah, really, really good.
We got lucky on that one. But there's crazy ones. We've had some where we're tracking. Dog's quiet, no noise, nothing's going on. And then all of a sudden, the dog just loses it, starts freaking out, and we're all looking around like, I don't know what just happened. And I look over, and the hunter's getting up off the ground, and I'm like, what happened? He's like, that deer just ran me over. I didn't even see it. Got up, ran over my hunter, ran over him, took off. So I just unclipped the dog because we knew that one was gut shot. You could see some guts on some of the branches. Unclipped the dog, let her go. And same thing I tell everyone, hey, man, you got to keep up. Because at this time, he had the gun, I didn't. And just give him the warning, like, hey, you do not pull the trigger until I tell you to. The same thing, we're running through these ravines and up and over. I'm trying to keep the dog at that 300-meter distance. And then finally it stops. And we start closing on the dog a little. There's this big creek, probably 30 feet wide, with steep banks on both sides. And I get over there, I can hear her. She's barking, she's banging, she's going crazy. The hunter is nowhere to be found behind. I come up, he's on the far side of the creek, and that buck is standing in the middle of the creek. But the sides are real steep. And she was not letting him out up the far side. So finally the guy gets up there, and he's like, where is it? I'm like, in the middle of the creek right there, So he puts another shot on it after we find it, and deer goes down. But now we are left with the problem, like, got this buck floating in the middle of this creek. So we're over there. Zada's like swimming around it, still trying to bark. She's barking underwater, swimming around this deer. The hunter has to get down in there. And this was probably December or January. So, that water couldn't have been 50 degrees. It was freezing cold, dragging the deer out. And again, that's another one where everybody looks at each other and says, man, that was crazy.
Yeah.
They don't all end like that. But most of the time, there's just a dead deer laying in the grass. You know what I mean? But
oh, geez. So how do people get a hold of you, Lyle? Tell people how to reach out to you.
Yeah, so the easiest way to do it for me is if you go onto my Facebook or onto my Instagram and just shoot me a message at Schmavis Outdoors on both of those. If that's not working for you, you can get my number directly off of United Blood Tracker's website. You click on the Find a Tracker, then click on Georgia. It'll be on there. I'm in the Georgia Outdoor News Network. Several other Facebook posts are around here, but those are the primary. If you hit up that Facebook or that Instagram at Schmavis Outdoors, it'll lead you right to me.
So, folks, this has been great, and I just, got a hold of Lyle and said, yeah, I want you to talk about tracking because he's the first tracker I've had on the show, and people are using dogs, retrievers for sheds, and now more and more people are using tracking dogs, and it's a big win-win for everybody. So, Lyle Avis, thank you so much for being a guest this evening on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Thanks for having me.
Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Hey, next up is Wilbur Spanish Mac Ramos, and he's part of Mass Pursuit TV. Now, if you haven't heard or watched Mass Pursuit TV, well, what are you waiting for? Mass Pursuit TV is all about deer hunting, and he talks about the excitement of hunting with a bow and the pleasure he gets. And he just says it's different than any other type of hunting. Yeah, he's killed them with shotguns and muzzleloaders and rifles, but he likes it up close and personal. And that's what their show's about. Mass Pursuit TV is all about getting up and close and personal to bucks and telling the story. Sometimes we watch hunting shows and storyline fuzzy at best, in this guy's opinion. But these guys
Spanish Mac gets up close and personal and brings the whole thing to home. So I think you're going to really love listening to Spanish Mac bring home Mass Pursuit TV.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.